resources that are available to it. So could you expand on that a little bit? Or is that a correct assertion?
I think it's absolutely true. I think humanity's immune system is kicking in. And that's what I say to you. I didn't actually answer your question about fundraising. I think it's a really good time to fundraise, because fundraising really is the reallocation of financial resources away from fostering and fueling the old economy, the harsh economy, the economy that's extractive and exploitive, and reallocating those resources to a sustainable economy. And taking money away from things you fear and towards that which you love. So it's a great time for philanthropy. And it also, as Roger said, you know that you have enough when you're sharing it. You don't actually experience the enoughness until you're sharing it. That's when it shows up for you, like the beautiful work he did with his son. So I think that's exactly right. I think it's a perturbation in the system, and I think our species, humanity's immune system, is kicking in. And we are a natural species, and we're going to go through a huge self-correction, and it's welcome and it's good.
I think a really important part to that as well is that what currently is happening right now, it really is not what it's about at all. In the same way that a year ago, everyone was talking subprime. It had nothing to do with subprime. It was just one of the symptoms of what was happening. And what's happening in financial markets and the banks is just one of the symptoms. Look, when the music is broken, it's going to start with the performers. You're going to think they're playing it wrong. Then you're going to start looking at the conductor, and the conductor's doing it wrong. But eventually it goes back to the composer. And what we see right now is an entire breakdown in the composition of money by governments and how it's being structured. And when we see that collapse, which we will, and it will be sooner than we think, what's going to be most important at that point is not how we try and hold on to the remnants of what was created for us through governments, whether it's the currencies or the assets and the valuations behind it. It's going to be basically not what we're trying to hold on to, which is sinking. It's going to be what we're actually creating, which is new. The relationships between us and the projects that we ourselves are growing and developing and evolving, which we frankly could not have done without the government having done this in the first place. We wouldn't have the internet today, and we would not have the communications between us all to even be having this conversation today and bring people around the world if money hadn't been created in the poor form in which it was created, and governments weren't created in a way which allowed us to stabilize away from having world wars for a period of 50 years. So it isn't like it hasn't allowed us to get to where we are today, but absolutely we are only at the beginning of that perturbation, that breakdown that we're seeing right now as well.
I would also say that the job, I think, for people who are alive on the planet today, like us, especially people who are awake, is to hospice the death of the old structures and systems that no longer serve us. Hospice their death. They are dying. We don't need to kill them. They're dying. Hospice their death with grace and appreciation, while we midwife the birth of the new structures and systems that are consistent with a sustainable future for all life. To be a hospice worker, to be a midwife worker, are both acts of love. So I think that's the job. And it'll go faster if we do that. It'll quicken so that we get through this with more compassion and wholly intact.
Final words. Marcia, final would you like to leave everyone with?
I think two things I'd like to make at this point. I love this whole notion of energy following focus, and that what you're creating is really what you're focused on, and to really look to see what your conversations are about, just like Lynne was saying, so that you see where your focus is and you know where your energy is going. You are your conversations. It's a way to look at who you are. You can look at your relationships as the conversations you're in the relationship. You can look at your family as the conversations that the family is in. It's a valid way to look at it. There's a lot of ways to look at things, but that particular way of looking at something, I have found, gives more value in terms of what you can produce in your life. And the last thing I would like to say is that I think it's good at this point for us all to consider that there is a cycle. You know, the cycle is a circle, and it includes both giving and receiving. Receiving is really the part of allowing that allows you to handle the order of things, where you're receiving, you're surrendering, you're allowing. The giving, it's a natural function for a human being to give. You know, it's like we go through cycles. First we give to live, but then we live to give. That's a higher order. But when you're giving, it also includes the receiving cycle. So, you know, I always look to see how can I contribute. I think one of the things that Lynne said, and this is my final thing for tonight, Lynne and I have some of the same mentors. We kind of grew up together when we were young and found ourselves in some of the same places where we were getting some of the same lessons from some of the great teachers. And one of the greatest lessons I got from the very beginning was that to commit my life to something bigger than myself, to have whatever I'm about be about a bigger thing than just me. And I found in doing that all sorts of things open up, not just to have the life I want to have, but for me to have the human family and the interaction in life that I would like to have. And the last thing really is thank you so much for your generosity of spirit and your listening and your intention and your attention. It's really appreciated. God bless.
Brother David Stendhal-Ross, this Benedictine monk who's my teacher, says this: the open hand is the hand that gives, and the open hand is the hand that receives. It's exactly the same posture. It's when the fingers start to curl and grasp that we begin the formation of the fist. And all violence begins with that grasping. So keep your hand open, give and receive, let it flow, and the world will be a peaceful place.
What you've heard today has been words. What many of you may not know is Lynne with Bill, and Bill, her husband, is actually in Ecuador right now, but they had a part to play with Pachamama in Ecuador becoming the first country in the world to write nature rights into their constitution. Human rights is only 60 years old, but for nature to also have rights and for that to actually be in the constitution, that is the first of many countries that will be doing that. And secondly, in my conversation with Lynne, when I last saw her, already she was talking about the work that they were starting on to really persuade Ecuador to take on a currency that was going to be working not against poverty and not against the rainforest, but actually something that would be sustaining, because they're getting to the root of the cause itself. What you may not know about Marcia is that she is launching with incredible people all over America something which is called the Wombat Media Network, which is something many people talk about, TV and a media network for good. But the fact that she's actually doing it with some of the top people in Hollywood right now is again the point about all of this, which is the words come after the action. But the actions have taken place right now. I met up with many of the members here today, and the action which is taking place right here in this room right now is phenomenal. And for me, that's what this is all about. There was a time, maybe 10 years ago, when you would hear speakers say, if you want to know your income, take the 5 people closest to you, take their average income, and that will be your income. But I think we're beyond that now, and it really is much more about outcome. If you were to look at the 5 people closest to you and the outcome they want to achieve in life, that will give you a pretty clear idea of who you're surrounding yourself with and the outcome you want to achieve as well. I know that many of you, just by being here today, have seen things differently and are going to go out and challenge yourself. Don't do it alone. Connect with each other. Come for the breakfast. Come for the weekend. Keep sharing. Keep growing. Keep actioning. And my final part would be a quote which is my favorite right now, because it is the 150th anniversary of Origin of the Species, and a lot of us, we misunderstand what it means, survival of the fittest. And what Darwin says, he says that it is not the strongest who survive, it is not the most intelligent who survive, it's those who are most adaptable to change. And on that note, I'd like to say thank you very, very much, and a big round of applause again.